I get it, Isaiah. You talk about Bitcoin all the time. Well, as I go out and about, I continually hear the demand for, hey, I need more Bitcoin education, or I don't really understand. I hear you talking about it. I know you're passionate about it. I know you have a lot of conviction, but I need more info. And that's where Bitcoin for Vet Med really came from, was taking, hey, the 10,000, 100,000 hours of time that I've spent and distill it down into bite-sized courses and walking you through of getting a foundational why, a little bit of understanding the technical side of Bitcoin, and then how to grapple with the fear, uncertainty, and doubt, and just the things that you hear throughout the media, and giving you the ability to up your Bitcoin knowledge to go from zero to hero and feel a lot more comfortable saying, okay, this is something that matters, and I want to take some of the value that I create and save into Bitcoin. So head over to bitcoinforvetmed.com or click the link in the show notes. We all know as a practice owner, one of the last things you want to think about is tax planning and strategizing for your practice. In addition, the long list of tasks on your radar, it's really hard to do everything. You have to find a trustworthy team of experts that understands the unique and specific needs within veterinary medicine. My suggestion would be my friends at Granite Peak Associates. Granite Peak is an advanced tax planning and veterinary practice advisory firm who has spent many years working within vet med. Their team works year-round to make sure you're able to maximize your profitability while also minimizing your liabilities. Whether you're in the process of purchasing a practice, looking to grow your practice, or transitioning towards the sale of your practice, they are the experts to help guide you through. What makes them different than other firms is their devotion to proactive tax planning. By thinking into the future and creating long-lasting relationships with their clients, Granite Peak can help minimize the amount of taxes paid over the course of many years to come. Head over to their website, granitepeakcpa.com, to receive a personalized comparison of your practice financials against over 140 other hospitals that they've worked with. You'll be able to see how your practice ranks, where you stack up, and where the opportunities are to get better. From there, you can schedule a one-on-one call with one of the members of their team to review and analyze your results. The opportunity speaks for itself. You need someone on your side. Granite Peak Associates is that team. Take advantage of their innovative expertise within the veterinary industry. Have you ever walked into a space and thought, wow, this place is beautiful? There's a reason for that. Architecture has this innate ability to impact emotions and perceptions. My friends at Apex Design Build bring beautiful and functional spaces for veterinarians nationwide. Apex is a fourth generation family run company that is fully integrated from the design, architecture, and construction process. They help you mitigate risk, eliminate surprises, save time, save money, and reduce your efforts. Sounds great. Check out their amazing work and have access to their square footage calculator to help you plan out your expansion or new build. Click the link in the show notes for the exclusive offer and learn more about Apex Design Build. Discover the nation's fastest growing practice management software. Who, you might ask? It's my friends at Shepherd Veterinary Software. Founded by a practicing veterinarian, Shepherd is easy to learn and works the way you work. Shepherd automatically updates the medical records, adds services to the invoice, generates discard instructions, and so much more. It's time to bring home more stories and less stress. Learn more today at www.shepherd.vet. All right. Super excited for the guests on the show today. And I'm joined by Emmitt Nantz. And Emmitt's been in veterinary medicine for, I think, almost 15 years. If my LinkedIn sleuthing did me right, he can correct me here in a second. And basically, Emmitt, throughout that time period, has been solving problems and building some really cool solutions for that. He's the co-founder and visionary leader at Inventory Ally, which is a cutting-edge inventory management software solution designed specifically for veterinary hospitals. I don't like to pick favorites, but I will tell you, Emmitt, I was blown away when we chatted at WVC, and I was like, we got to record this podcast, and we're going to chat all through it. But thank you so much for joining me.
Isaiah, thanks so much for the opportunity. It's great to be here. It was a lot of fun chatting with you at WVC and learning more about what you're up to. And I think we share some passion for sure for this space.
Yeah. Anything from your perspective at WVC? I know you were busy, and like most people, had some things going on through today. Any conversations, anything that stuck out, things that were maybe different in the past? I know you've been, again, around the industry for quite a while. Anything noteworthy?
Well, to self-promote a little bit, the one that stands out the most is there was a conversation or a presentation in Top Technology. So the top 10 technologies for 2024 for veterinary hospitals presented by Sean Wilkie of Talkatoo. And we made the top 10 list, but also if there was one to choose, it was Inventory Ally. So that really stood out. It's Um, Again, it's a little bit self-promoting, but the idea is this is a real problem that people feel are just is just going to be a problem, and they have to deal with it. And we're trying to make a case that that's not true. But I'm also looking at a lot of conversations I had looking at 2024, people recognizing that it's going to be a tough year on the top line. Visits are down year over year. Visits tend to be down. Pricing is going to be a difficult lever to pull. We've already exercised that, so there's not a lot of upside potential there. And labor is still very difficult lever to pull when it comes to your P&L as well, because it's very competitive. Still a mismatch in supply and demand. So just people recognizing that cost of goods actually is an opportunity to improve your profitability this year, and that tends to be consistent regardless who we talk to. So, but honestly, I was in meetings a lot. I wasn't able to chat on the floor a whole lot with folks. So that's kind of what stood out to me in my visits.
I love it. And I know you've been on a couple other really great podcasts. You've kind of shared a little bit of your story, but for those that maybe haven't checked those out or don't necessarily know your story, as much context, detail, because I think it sets the stage for why you're doing what you're doing today and like how you got to this point. So would love
Sure.
to kind of do a flyby of your career.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think I'm coming up on 20 years within the
Okay.
veterinary space and veterinary
That's awesome.
operations. Maybe mine's off. Maybe it just feels like it's been 20 years, but I'm pretty sure I'm in that 18 to 20 year range. So I started about that time ago managing hospitals at Banfield. It was my first introduction. I was doing an MBA and an MBA course. One of my fellow students was part of the Banfield network early on, and she introduced me. Shout out to Dr. Carrie Marshall. Introduced me to Banfield and the veterinary medicine, and I fell in love with it. It just in general, the thing that I kind of keep repeating is I'm passionate about people who are passionate about pets. And I say it specifically that way because my background and experience and my love is process improvement. So data analytics, lean, Six Sigma, those types of designs, but putting it to use to remove barriers and bottlenecks in the processes for veterinary medicine is just what I found love. Because these are people who know their why. They know why they get up in the morning. They know why they do what they do, and the compensation is not the primary driver. It's the purpose is their primary driver. But I've seen time and time and time again where manual processes distract them from delivering care. And it drives me nuts because it's not necessary. So I made a career at Banfield over a course of over a decade of doing large scale process improvement projects. One was an inventory management solution. Another was a workflow optimization. So rolled from root cause analysis to project design and then deploying it over 1,000 hospitals, really focusing on just removing the things within the processes each day that prevent us providing care. And that was a whole lot of fun, and that led me to SmartFlow. So I then joined this startup software company called SmartFlow, which is a digital workflow optimization tool. I joined as the COO, CFO, and a year later we exited that product to IDEX to help it scale as part of their software, veterinary software and services division. When I joined IDEX, I spent 3.5 years there, and I managed the onboarding customer success team for things like Cornerstone, Neo, DVMax, SmartFlow, and a variety of other software products, and really kind of again leaned out a lot of the bottlenecks associated with that process to bring better value to our veterinary care providers. And now I'm doing Inventory Ally, which is just a continuation of that because I see a lot of hospitals just struggle with inventory management. It's a complete pain. They spend a lot of time, waste a lot of money. More than anything else, it distracts them from being technicians and CSRs and DVMs providing care to patients. So the last thing I'll say on that is like, we have to acknowledge that veterinary medicine is a service business. And the success of a service business is when your customers come back and they refer their friends. So anything that distracts us from doing that needs to be resolved. And that's what I'm really trying to focus on.
Yeah. And I mean, I've not lived it the same way that you have, but just in the conversations as, being in this space, working with practice owners, inventory has always been an issue, right? It's I have a dedicated person, I need to find someone, or this just isn't working. Yeah, we'll get to it. It's a pain in the rear. So I guess what and how are you kind of solving for that with Inventory Ally? And we'll kind of unpack that in stages, but high level, like what are
Mm-hmm.
you doing?
Well, I've partnered with Nicole Clausen. I'll start with that. Nicole is the guru in inventory management in the veterinary space. She's worked for many years hand in hand with hospitals trying to solve for inventory solutions. So, as a consultant, as an educator, as an advocate, as a friend, she engages veterinary hospitals to help them solve this issue because it's complex. The reason it's complex is because the solutions that exist are mainly through PIMS, but the PIMS is not a good inventory manager. Now, if the assumption is it would be, because in a retail environment where I buy something, I sell it, I replace it, the math is right there. I can easily understand how much I'm selling and how much I need to replace. And even in manufacturing, if I'm building something out of parts, well, I know how many parts need to go into the thing I'm producing. So that math's fairly straightforward too. But in service, which veterinary medicine is, the inventory is, some of it's consumed in the hospital. Some of it transacts as a one-to-one. Some of it we break down the packages and sell components of those packages. And then other stuff we sell as part of a service package, like a procedure, a spay, neuter, dental, those types of things. Well, when we try to manage that through PIMS, we're missing all of the stuff we consume in the hospital that doesn't transact. And a lot of the stuff that is sold is actually part of a service package. But when we build it into the PIMS, we build it as if every procedure is the same. So I call it static consumption, but it actually varies every time. So our inventory within the PIMS is always going to be incomplete and generally inaccurate. And I see a lot of people spend a lot of time just trying to audit that data to make it predictable so that they can do their job. The other alternative is inventory cabinets, which requires a high degree of compliance and accuracy to do what needs to be done, and they're cumbersome and can be expensive to manage all of your inventory. I think they're fantastic for controlled substances, things that are high risk for theft, or other things that need to make sure we hit the invoice for charging, but they're not very good at managing all of the inventory. So, Inventory Ally, the thing that makes us unique is we don't use the transactional data at all. We use order history data. And then we use predictive analytics at every item level, every SKU, and we understand your total consumption, whether you're using it in the hospital, you're selling it, or otherwise. And then we calculate a min and max. So every week for every item, we recalculate your reorder points to ensure you have enough, but not too much to meet your demand. And then by recalculating it, we're keeping it up to date with any changes in demand. If you added a doctor, if you've got some seasonal trends, if you added a new product. So our goal is to start with the foundation of your order history and then guide you through that replenishment to make sure you can accommodate your demand, have enough, not too much. And then we can add the transactional data from the PIMS where it's appropriate to accelerate some of the visibility and add other insights. So really just trying to tackle this from a completely different data set and something that fits more of that consumption model versus assuming a retail design.
And I know it's still early, but you talked about, PIMS are obviously not the correct way to do it, but you all have some integrations, and I've seen some announcements, I think, on social media. So there is an integration with PIMS for some. Is that correct?
Yes. Yeah. So we have a direct integration with Shepherd. We have indirect access to data for a few other products, some of the server-based PIMS, but we're in direct conversation with a variety of PIMS providers for direct integration. What we do with that is that we have the transactions from your invoice. We have you map those items to the items that you purchase. So we can start to see the relationship of when I buy this and sell this, so I replenish it. So as we continue to add more and more of that mapping, we're understanding kind of weighted impact on demand, if you will. So as you transact, and it's important to say it that way because it's not one-to-one. I don't buy Apoquel 250 count bottle and sell Apoquel as a tablet all the time. I might sell a bottle of Apoquel. I might sell a package of 50. I might sell one tablet at a time. The piece being there's generally multiple PIMS line items associated with one replenishment item. So we calculate the weighted impact on that. Just to kind of guide the replenishment a little bit more. But the other thing that it does is it gives us the ability to offer insights that aren't visible otherwise. When that's directly associated with margins by product. How much money are you generating off the cost of the specific product? We can start to dig directly into shrink. You bought 10, you sold 8, where are the other 2? We can get very tight on that. We also like to dig into redundant formulary and a variety of other things that are the true levers of cost of goods sold. And our goal is what we see is a lot of hospitals carry a lot of excess inventory. And that excess creates inflated cost of goods sold. So it's money that's wasted that could be invested. Had a great conversation last week with one of our hospitals who needs to replace their washer and dryer, but it's going to be fairly expensive. They're a large hospital. And they were concerned about that conversation. I said, well, actually, let's take a look. We've reduced the inventory on hand in your hospital by about $20,000. And that's what you're looking for. So we've created cash that you can now invest in your hospital to increase your operations, improve your operations. So that's exactly what we're trying to achieve.
That was going to be kind of my next question of just looking at savings and trying to show something tangible, which I think is really unique because there are times, and I go back to kind of my experiences or my history with like financial planning, for example, it's very intangible. It's like hard to exactly get to a specific dollar amount of like what that does.
Mm-hmm.
I think one thing that's really interesting with what you all are doing is you can show like the material impact on, dollars back in the hospital margin. And you think about that from, let's say you are an owner that maybe someday has aspirations to sell, right? That's going to go right
Yep.
to the valuation at hospital, which is magical. And so I think it was a vet partner study that was basically for every $1 lost of revenue, it was $3 on the sale price. But you can look at that and think of it almost the other way of like if you're able to save that and you have more of that drop down to margin or EBITDA, like that's a huge amplifying factor when you go to sell.
Huge. You're absolutely right. So I mean, most hospitals, independent hospitals, individuals are selling somewhere between 8 and 12 times their EBITDA number right now. And when we have, on average, we'll see about a 2 to 4 point cost of goods sold improvement that, to your point, drops straight to the bottom line. So if you think about, let's say just an average there of 3 points of cost of goods, that is 3 points of revenue, they drop straight to the bottom line. And then you multiply that by 8 to 12. We're saving hospitals just on their COGS line somewhere between $20,000 and $100,000 a year on cost of goods sold, depending on the size of the location. And that can be amplified by those multiples. You're absolutely right. But not only that, our system saves, most hospitals go from 4 to 8 hours a week managing inventory to 30 to 45 minutes, one day a week. So instead of reactively kind of trying to make sure we have enough stuff every day, we say, here's a list of items, here's how much you need to order, and you're done. And you'll have enough to get through another cycle. So that puts technician and CSR time back towards patients and clients, which can increase your capacity on the top line as well.
And I know like we're definitely focusing because there is a material dollar amount, but the idea of getting so sucked into, hey, it's just all price based, right? There's this idea of I only want to do that, which is funny and also kind of rich when you think about it within vet med, because a lot of times if you talk to a hospital, are they the cheapest? They'll be like, no, well, we do this and this and this and this. Yet when they turn around and they look at the partners that they want to work with, how are they judging and picking who they work with? Oh, this person is the cheapest. Can you talk a little bit about kind of some of the things you're working on when you think about like, okay, what is the service that I'm getting, the material benefit, but also like this partnership long-term costs, not just the short-term on this invoice for, XYZ product.
Yeah, I really appreciate that question because it's something that I've noticed quite a bit is there's a real focus on just lowest cost. And I see it kind of reinforced when I see the way that we try to manage cost of goods in enterprise groups. The main lever that they try to pull is a budget. And a lot of hospitals use a budget. Budgets are great if they're calculated right. But what I'll often see is the hospital A, you get 18% of last week's revenue to spend on your goods, or maybe it's 12% is what you get to spend through certain suppliers. But that is trying to force the spend to be less than what we want it to be in order to hit our COGS. But what that forces in the hospital is trying to decide what you're going to run out of and what you're not going to run out of, which just exacerbates the whole problem. What Inventory Ally is really focused on is how can we replenish the goods to meet the demand and then identify opportunities within your margins, your redundant formula, your service mix, or your sales mix. So that just kind of frames the idea of I've got this. I see a lot of conversations about reduce the cost, reduce the cost, reduce the cost. But there's a lot of intangible value with the service partners that people work with, whether distributors, manufacturers, or others. There's intangible value that comes through the service component of those relationships that when we just try to minimize cost, we actually start to cut out some of the opportunity for them to provide that because they have to compete solely on the price. So I want to encourage everybody to think about the value that comes from the partnership and put it, to your point, put it in your own experience as a veterinary service provider. If we just have the lowest cost, what are you able to provide to your patients and your pet owners? you're going to have to start to cut some of that service out and just focus on low cost provision, which is not best care. Think of that within your partnerships as well, to think about the care that I can get in my business, my B2B relationships, by looking at the holistic portion of it. So I do have a bit of a soapbox I get on sometimes, where I want to make sure that, because it's self harming as a business, as a veterinary business, when all I'm trying to do is replenish based on lowest cost. But I get it too, because right now, without Inventory Ally, there's no visibility into those other levers. There's no clear visibility into the total margin on my products. There's no clear visibility into my sales versus goods mix, or my service versus goods mix of sales. It's hard to identify redundant formula. Those true levers of performance are difficult to see. So I get why it's done, but I would like to encourage people to think bigger picture on partnerships with those who are working with you to make sure that your business is successful. Hopefully
Yeah, and
that
I
made
can think
sense.
makes total sense. And I can think of an example of a veterinarian that has been really successful. And I can remember, working with him on the financial planning side and just going through some of the partnerships and people they worked with. And he chose, hey, these people are local. They helped me back when XYZ happened. And like, I want to be loyal to them because they've always taken care of me. And so the relationship and the benefit for being able to do certain things for him was super valuable. It's like, yeah, if I can save a little bit and it's close enough, I'm not even worried about it. He goes, it has to be a material difference. And I think there's a difference between just ignoring it and be like, oh, well, this person's great. And I really like Isaiah, even if they're way more expensive, to saying, hey, I think there's a benefit here and there's something associated with that. And yeah, just remember when the script is flipped, how you feel when that's done as a veterinarian, when you're like, well, so-and-so will do it cheaper down the road. You'd be like, great. They don't. Fantastic. Go talk to them, right? Like that's super annoying, but then you're doing the exact same thing to the partners that are out there. I think is important to reflect on.
Well, there's the phrase "penny wise, pound foolish," which kind of comes to mind when we start to talk about this a little bit. Because the other piece that I see a lot is we'll spend hours trying to save a little bit, but the time associated with the labor that's spent trying to maximize our savings is actually wasted in the cost of labor. Then that labor is not only money spent on labor, but it's revenue lost by not having that labor work on revenue generating activities. So it's just another piece of that, of like thinking holistically, how do I promote my business to be successful by being optimal? One of my other soapboxes is I never look to minimize or maximize anything. I look to optimize all the variables to get the best outcomes, right? So always think about optimization with all the variables that you're trying to pull together that go into each decision. And so that's something to keep in mind as well.
If you can improve the health of an animal, you do it, right? Of course. That's what makes veterinarians special. You're mission driven. My friends at LifeLearn are the exact same way. For over 25 years, they've been partnering with you and your peers, providing affordable, customizable, online software solutions. These solutions save time, increase efficiency, and assist in managing all aspects of operations. Why? They want to help you improve your partnership with pet owners to improve pet health. LifeLearn has award-winning digital media solutions and are leading the pack as they've prioritized having extensive veterinary knowledge throughout their teams. That difference is seen, it's heard, and it's read by thousands of people across the country. Relax, grow, and thrive with LifeLearn. Click the link in the show notes for an exclusive offer to see how LifeLearn can allow you to get back to what you do best.
What's something that you think overall, big picture, and maybe it has to do with Inventory Ally, maybe it's slightly separate. What's most misunderstood about inventory in general within a veterinary hospital? And perhaps you've already hit on that, but
sure,
anything that stands out?
Yeah, the way that I would summarize that is that it has to be hard. That's the thing that I think is most generally accepted, and therefore not even a lot of people are trying to solve for it. It's just been accepted as difficult. And there's a lot of inventory managers, again, I'll say, are generally technicians and CSRs, but they've put a ton of time and effort into solving this problem. And what most end up with is a very complex set of solutions to be able to solve for the inventory piece, which is I'm using some data from my PIMS, I'm using Excel sheets, I'm using pull tags, I've got this whole process that keeps everything in line. But they often find themselves in a position where they can't really take vacation because nobody else knows this system. They can't be promoted because nobody else knows this system. And they can't leave because they'll leave everybody in a lurch. So they can't pursue other opportunities either. So they've created such a complex solution around themselves that becomes a barrier personally. Um, what Inventory Ally is set to do is like, we're going to use data and we're going to guide the replenishment. We're going to optimize the turnover based on expensive, high volume items versus low cost, low volume items. And we simplify it just to make life quite a bit easier. So just that idea that inventory is hard, it sucks, it is what it is, and we need somebody with a very complex solution that knows it in detail that can never leave. I would challenge that perspective.
Well, and maybe it feels like I'm really important here. I have job security. And so I get protective over my process because, that's where I can hang my hat is like, I make a difference because I do this inventory thing, which
Yep.
sucks. And it's hard. No one else can do it. I wear as a badge of honor, right?
There's certainly a badge of honor. There's certainly some. I know how to do this. Our hospital's unique. We're very special, and this is unique to us because it solves the problem. And I totally get that. I'm certainly not trying to undermine. I've created very complex solutions before, and been very proud of it. But I would like to encourage folks to really think about this. Could be data driven. It could be automated. It could be delegated. But what's in store for you beyond this? If you're able to solve these types of complex problems, what else needs to be solved? How can you displace the need to focus time and attention here and actually solve some more complicated solutions within your practice? Inventory Ally can start to simplify this.
I think one of the natural questions to someone listening would be, okay, why would I not want to do Inventory Ally, right? Like, what's a compelling reason to say, you know what, it doesn't make sense in this situation? Is it? I think we chat a little bit. Like, I think you all are working on some de novo stuff, but I mean, is that one case? Like, when does it not fit? Because to me, it seems like a heck of a solution.
It's proven to be a great solution for all kinds. We have single doctor practices that have seen a lot of savings, more in the time savings because they tend to be very constrained with time. They can't afford a bunch of labor, so they get that back. We have a very large emergency referral hospital that's seeing some significant savings in their inventory carry costs, and they're running very good cost of goods sold. We have a mixed animal practice in rural Kentucky that's done a fantastic job of just saving time and money and seeing those results. So it's not very specific to size of practice or even type of practice. Inventory replenishment in a service-based business is really what we do that we solve for. But to your question, and you kind of already led into it, de novos are the more complicated piece for us because we've built it on order history and predictive analytics based on normal demand. And then measuring changes in that demand. So without an established history, that's more complicated for us. But we're working on solutions, especially with the PIMS integration, that can give us accelerated visibility to what that demand actually looks like. And so we'll be releasing some new features within the next couple of months that really start to enable the de novo piece of this. Now, where I have seen a couple hospitals that it doesn't really work for is that they're a single doctor practice with 2 or 3 people that are just carrying very minimal SKUs. So more like a vaccine clinic or something in that very limited piece to where adding weekly cycle counts and stuff becomes more effort. But far and above, like 98% of those that we engage with, we save them hours a week. We reduce their inventory on hand 30 to 40%. We add 2 to 4 points to the bottom line. And that's just by simplifying the process. Once we add PIMS data and other analytics, we can get another 2 to 4 points in most cases through margin improvements and redundant formulary improvements, those types of things. So I haven't seen too many instances where it doesn't actually start to solve for one of those 3 things in hospitals.
Yeah, I love it. Appreciate the kind of oversight. I think one of the natural questions for someone listening is, okay, is it too good to be true? Like, how does Inventory Ally make money? Like, how does it work? How does this structure work? Because I think that's important as well.
No, I appreciate that. We're a SaaS business, so subscription software as a service is what SaaS is. So we're just a monthly subscription design, and that allows us to be very affordable. Most hospitals have somewhere between a 15 and 25x ROI, so return on investment. So whatever they spend with us, they should expect to get somewhere between 15 and 25 times that per year in savings, whether it's through time or it's through COGS or it's through inventory or all the above. So we're just a monthly subscription revenue, and that gives you the ability to cancel it if you're not getting any value anymore. Our goal, the key design of Inventory Ally is what we call the customer success model. And some people might be familiar with that. But within software, the goal to be successful as a SaaS business is that you have customers that pay you each month for many, many months. If they cancel for any reason, then you lost that opportunity to generate revenue. To keep customers, you have to provide value. Customer success is our goal of, we're going to partner with you long-term, and we're going to incrementally add value based on where you're at and what that next opportunity is. We want you to be our customer, but we only want you to be our customer if we're providing you value and it's worth paying for. So we take that to heart. So our goals as a business is to become large, many customers paying us each month, and that makes us successful. But each customer has to stay with us for that to be real. So customer success is about making sure you're getting the value from day one and long into the future.
SaaS businesses that can't retain clients doesn't work well, right? Like there's a lot of lift on the front end, I would imagine, as well as you get up and running and communication and time spent with your team. That if someone doesn't want to stick around, that's an expensive process to acquire new. So
That's
makes
right.
total sense.
That's right. Yep. The payback period's a little farther down the road, so you have to
Yeah.
make sure it's worthwhile.
You might have already said this, but I love asking this question, and you can take it outside of kind of the inventory story. And I know you talked about maybe the answer is inventory doesn't have to be hard, but what's a non-consensus view that you have in vet med in general that maybe others would disagree with?
Well, I started with, like, every time I've had a successful project, whether it was at Banfield or the other adventures I've had, the right answer tends to be about 180 degrees from the normal answer. Right. An example of that is one of the projects I led was changing the workflow within the hospital at Banfield, and they had what they called cycle of service, and that was that the technician would be with the pet owner. They'd tell the doctor would come in, meet with the pet owner. They'd tell the technician, here's what we want to do. They'd go back in. And what we ended up doing was paying technician, doctor, go in at the same time. Don't bring the patient owner into the room until you're ready to see them, because the appointment starts there. And we condensed to what was taking on average 50 to 55 minutes based on a really specific plan of attack to try to optimize people's time. We condensed that to an average of about 20 to 30 minutes, depending on the appointment type. So we ended up saving a lot of time just by condensing the way that visit went. Well, same with inventory. We kind of assume that we need to use transactional data through the PIMS. That's what we have access to. But by flipping it on its head and say, actually, let's look at your order data, that becomes the answer. That becomes something that's going to simplify our way to replenish things. So to answer your question more specifically, I consistently see that this is how we do things, and there's a reason for it. I don't know quite what that is, but there's a reason for it, and this is how we do it. But if you stop to take a minute and go, what if we did it completely opposite somehow? What would that look like? I've had success with that many, many times. But the reason that I see it's kind of reinforced oftentimes is we're just so damn busy. Honestly, in the hospitals, there's no time to stop and think and reinvent. And it's really complicated to get the team to buy into a new process. But there's so much value in taking the time to do that. If I could just plug a book real quick, I would like to encourage everybody to read. It's called The Goal by Eliyahu Goldratt. And it introduces a concept called the theory of constraints, which just simplifies this whole concept of how do you always improve a process? It's find the bottleneck and improve up to the bottleneck. It improves the whole process, but something else becomes the bottleneck. So then you tackle that next, right? And so it's just a continuous improvement kind of a design that simplifies how you can start to do incremental changes. But yeah, try to turn things on its head to find the right solution. It's worked for me quite a bit.
Yeah, I think that it's interesting. It got brought up in a conversation recently, and it was this idea of construction of veterinary hospitals and this idea of why do the weight rooms have to be big and huge and glorious and like spend all this money there? What if you put another exam room and you outsource some of the things in the front to where you don't have all that space and you can optimize because maybe your space is smaller because you're in an expensive area with real estate. Why do we always have to have it designed the same? I was like, that's actually pretty creative. I like that idea. Some people are going to think that's stupid and they don't like it. And there's a reason you need to have, people there and XYZ, but there's probably a really good, interesting flow for being more efficient and having a better experience for everyone involved. And maybe it costs you less. That could be really interesting.
It costs you less. It also increases your capacity. But I really like that example because something that I've observed many times is in process, we will oftentimes add buffer. So we build in buffer to try to give us the sense of we don't have predictability. We're going to protect ourselves from the unpredictability. A waiting room is a really good example of that. Like, we don't know when we're going to be able to get them into the rooms. And so we need a place for them to sit and wait until we can bring them in, because we don't know what the day is going to look like. But when you improve the process and you're committed to the appointment time is the appointment time, we've made a commitment to them, they've made a commitment to us. We need to change our process to make sure we meet that. We need to account for the one-offs when they happen, but not build process around the one-offs. So the lobby, I love that. I haven't heard that before, but imagine adding 2, 3, 4 more exam rooms with a much smaller space, because you know you'll be able to get them right into the room. Wow. Yeah. My
It's
brain's
not an
spinning on
Isaiah.
that
Again,
one. I love that one.
part of the podcast is getting to talk to really smart, interesting people. And it was a comment made, and it wasn't on a podcast, it was on a phone call. And I was like, that's genius. That's really smart.
Very smart.
And there's a couple people that have done that with de novo startups and have had a lot of success. So hopefully one of those people will be a guest at some time in the future, can talk more about it. I just know a little bit from that story, but it made me stop and say, which made me think of exactly what you're talking about. Maybe it's completely 180 and doing it completely different, and there's a reason that would be much better. So
yeah, I always encourage people to figure out a way to improve the predictability. And so I love that piece, because when you don't have predictability, you create buffer zones just to protect yourself from what might happen. And that's where we reinforce in our minds those one-offs that did happen are always potential, and we protect ourselves from those when they're rarely going to happen. But we create just a ton of waste within the system. So yeah, that's funny. That's a good one.
what haven't I asked you about that is either on your heart or mind that you want to chat a little bit about?
Well, obviously, I'm very passionate about inventory. I love talking about inventory, so I appreciate that. But in general, I come back to some of your first question of I want to make sure that hospitals are able to focus time and attention on the patients and the pet owners. There's so much that happens every day that's distracting from that, and I encourage people to challenge those. The assumption that those are necessary. Inventory is what we're tackling. I see some really good products out there when it comes to AI note takers, new inventions within certain PIMs, cloud-based PIMs, and other integrations that can start to simplify your day. It can be really hard to try to change process like we just talked about, but I really encourage those things that you do redundantly every day that's not talking with a pet owner or treating a pet. Find ways to displace your effort on those. Put your time and effort where it needs to be, and find partners like Inventory Ally, or your famous distributor, or your buying group, or your PIMS, things that are going to simplify your life on those redundant things that's not treating pets or clients. I would love to even just chat with people who are trying to solve those problems, whether it's inventory or not, because I believe this is a profession that's honorable. It is driven by a known why, and that why supersedes all other type of drivers in this space. And I believe people deserve to live that why, and deserve to do it with financial freedom and without the stress and the frustrations that come with it. So let's all work together to try to get that stuff out of the way. That's just kind of my plug. I want to see those people do what they are meant to do.
Amen to that. I love it. I did warn you a little bit before we clicked record that I'm going to ask you if you have a question for me. So we're
Sure,
at that moment
sure.
where I'm gonna lob it back to you, and we can chat on anything that you want to ask. Nothing's off limits. What
Yeah.
question, if anything, do you want to fire my way?
Well, I tend to live and breathe within the veterinary space. I think hopefully that's come through in what we've talked about here. So I want to keep it within the space, but I wasn't able to do a lot of social interactions last week at WVC. I know you were there. I think you probably got around and talked to quite a few more people. So I'm wondering, what type of themes did you recognize last week for 2024 within vet med? What should people be thinking about? What are some things we could chat about?
I think we talked about this a little bit, and it might be me having a sample size that's smaller and also focusing on it because I see it so much. Because I don't, live and breathe vet med each and every day. I spend a lot of time kind of between this Bitcoin world and vet med, and like trying to figure out like how do I have an ability to impact both, because I do have a passion for vet med, similar to what you talked about, right? The people are just amazing. This idea of really solid, smart, incredible people that built really great businesses that sold. They have left the industry and are starting to come back and say, you know what? Yeah, I got life-changing money. This is really cool, but I'm not done yet. I have more to give, and I want to do some different things. And this pendulum, and I keep talking about this, but it's I think the theme for this year for me is the pendulum is swinging back to private practice ownership. The ability
Yep.
to leverage tools and technology similar to Inventory Ally and what you guys are doing to say, shoot, you can create an amazing business and you don't have to do it alone. There's going to be certain things that you're going to be responsible for, and it's not all rainbows and butterflies and perfectly easy, but the tools are there. And every time I go to these big conferences, one of the biggest things I always think of is the excess. We're in this huge, beautiful space. There's all this money that's spent. How much money just in general is spent on people going to that? Right? How much money is spent by the exhibitors? Like there's just an enormous amount of money that's out there. And someone threw a phone call yesterday and it was really impactful. It was, private practice medicine for him has allowed him to practice medicine the way that he was taught. That's what he talked about. It's not making more money because he actually made more when he was a relief veterinarian because he's a de novo startup and still kind of early in his journey.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that stuck with me is like, so many people are driven by the passion of doing it the way that they feel like is best. And I think private practice gives them that. Also, there's this nice little feature where you can make a really great living and have an asset that can set you up for financial success in the future as well. Again, it doesn't happen overnight. It is not easy. I've heard lots of struggling folks and stories, but it's also really incredible to see the ability to unlock the potential within vet med and again, within a younger generation to do some pretty special things. And so what I notice in conversations, and again, maybe it is because of who I was talking to and what I was thinking about, it is that there are so many cool solutions and so many offerings that are coming that in the next 2 years, it's going to look completely different. And it's not that corporate medicine is bad, right? I mean, you've worked for one of the largest, and there's a lot of benefits for that. And I know lots of people that have had tons of success and learned a ton and have great relationships with folks there. So I'm not like, hey, corporate is evil and bad and, it cannot function. I think there is a spot for both and there's a big need. So there's an option there for folks. And so what I saw is there's really good tools that are out to allow you to go and do your own thing if you have that itch and you need to scratch it. And oh, by the way, worst case scenario is there's a lot of openings if you fail, right? And I think that's a big if, and it is scary. No one likes to fail. I'll be the first one to say, right? I had a business partnership that failed, right? It stinks. It's not easy. But you know what? There's lots of other really exciting things that are outside there that you can do. So I look at the pendulum swinging back from this mega, everything's going to corporate. There'll be no private practice ownership to, hey, maybe this private practice ownership thing's got some legs and I should look at it. And so I think we're early in those days, but that's coming. And I think that's what stuck out to me at WBC. Winding
I love
answer,
that.
very winding answer, but that's what.
No, it's fantastic, and I love just encouraging the concept because corporate consolidation is right for certain individuals, and a lot of them exercise that opportunity. Love that a number of them got really high multiples for all the effort and time that they put into it, and they had a successful exit. But what to the point that you made before, there's a lot of people kind of swinging back that maybe did have a life-changing event, but the passion didn't go away. Right?
Yeah.
The money didn't change the passion. And so they're coming back in to say, how do we solve this more? But I also love the conversation around the independence. Like a hospital should be able to put 20% to the bottom line and continue to grow. The demand is out there, right? So we can grow, you can be financially stable, do well. If you set some of that aside and you invest it for your long-term, then you're going to be set really well. The one thing I would target is making sure you understand an exit strategy and having some sense of that, because if you're not going to consolidate and sell to corporate, which is a great mission to have, look at what your other options are, because a lot of veterinarians coming out with high student debt. How do they build the opportunity to actually purchase what you want to sell it for? And so maybe getting creative around some of those exit strategies and start thinking about it before it's time to sell.
Mm-hmm.
So you know what you're really looking for. And if you want to sell and keep it independent, you may have to take a lower valuation, but you need to plan for that ahead. So I agree with what you're saying. I love that it's shifting that way. I think that the relationship with the pet owner is what's critical for success, and that tends to be lost sometimes when you consolidate. So just protecting that opportunity, but protecting yourself financially as well, I think pulling all those systems together to make sure that you operate well and get good returns is important.
Yep. And I just think the amount of technology that allows an independent practitioner to level the playing field is coming. It's there. Again, it's hard to change an existing hospital overnight, but you can do it in stages. It doesn't have to be, hey, I went to XYZ conference and now we're going to do 10 different things when I come back. Pick one thing, implement it, and have a roadmap of where and how you want to make changes. And it's like you can see a ton of impact and change in 3 to 5 years. It doesn't have to all happen overnight in 2024. It's going to take some time.
Right.
If you do a startup, it's a little bit easier to implement some of those things from the beginning. But again, you won't have revenue day one. So like start leaner and know that I can add this stuff in the future. You don't have to get all the bells and whistles from day one. And I think some folks that have done that, they maybe regret it, right? Oh, I want to get this big, huge, beautiful building. Well, that's a heavy carrying cost every month when you don't have enough revenue. And so like, how long's your runway and what does that look like? And
Right.
so,
well, I'm thinking that you have a very clear vision of everything absolute from day one is something I discourage too, because you're going to learn a whole lot. And if you sunk a bunch of money into the optimal solution that you're kind of locked into, you're going to waste a lot of that money, right? Get going, find the path, have a sense of where you're headed, and then pick the right solutions to complement. You have a lot of options now. You can't just pick everything. You have to have a sense of where you're headed and what you're trying to achieve that means a lot to you, and then find the right partners and the right solutions for that, for sure.
So for those that are interested and want to connect with you or the team, or how do they have those conversations? Is it LinkedIn? Is there an email? What links and areas can I send people from the podcast?
Yeah, you can look at me on LinkedIn. So Emmitt Nantz, you can find me there. Not a whole lot of Emmitts, and certainly no other Emmitt Nantz that I've run across. You can go to inventoryally.com, and there's a demo page. You can book a demo directly with me. I'd be happy to chat, whether it's about Inventory Ally or anything else that we've shared. I love helping veterinary hospitals just think through solutions and kind of offer somewhat of an objective perspective on what other things are out there they should be considering. You can email me directly at emmitt at vetlogic, vetlogic.co. That's my email address. So happy to connect with you that way as well. Find me and we'll connect.
Perfect. Well, I'll include all that in the show notes, and I'll have the book that you talked about as well. So for those that rewinded this like 8 times earlier, I'll have the link for that as well in the show notes. So Emmitt, this has been a blast. Really, really appreciate it. I think you have an amazing offering from you and the team, and excited to see where things go from here.
Thanks, Isaiah. I really appreciate the time. It's been fantastic.
Finding a job or finding a veterinarian shouldn't be a waste of time. Enter an Offer First. Paul Diaz and team have created something really special with Offer First. Some of my favorite reasons are as follows. Candidates and employers will both have values aligned on the first step, not the last. The sign-up process quick and simple, no resume required. So if you're looking for a job but you aren't really sure, it's as easy as scrolling on Zillow for a home. And finally, if you have a great match, it's based on your each unique requirements, not random keywords. If you want to learn more, listen to episode 179 with Paul Diaz. We cover all of that. The other exclusive great thing that you're going to get from this ad read and from Paul is I convinced him to give an exclusive discount to listeners of this podcast. So for owners, you're getting a 20% discount on both the placement of any candidate, but also access to the platform. Use VSP if you go to Offer First, or the easiest way is a link in the show notes. So check it out. Associates, those looking for a job, same thing. Use the link in the show notes. Use VSP if you go directly to Offer First. But I will donate and Paul will donate to a veterinary nonprofit of your choosing. So each person that signs up gets a vote. Your votes actually count, which is incredible. And so I'll be reaching out. I will handle that. But there's going to be a donation made for any associate or any job seeker that adds on the platform. We want to make sure that not only does the platform help to make sure that you find a better fit, better culture, better role, but it's also doing good in veterinary medicine. Okay, so link in the show notes is going to take you to Offer First. It's going to automatically apply that, but also use code VSP if you go to Offer First directly. And Offer First is changing the game of veterinary recruiting. I want each and every one of you to benefit from it, so check them out today. All right, so there are a lot of great job postings that I want to get to. And so we're going to start off with Bayside Hospital for Animals. Great work-life balance in beautiful Fort Walton Beach, Florida. No weekends, Monday to Friday, 8 to 5, no on-call or emergencies.
It's appointment only here. Currently a 2.5 doctor practice, new owner in 2021, bringing some fresh life into the hospital. The new owner had been there for 6 years prior working, so definitely understands the team, the processes, and the community. Lots of investment in people and new equipment. ProSal is the pay structure. Far too many benefits for me to list. Email BaysideVet251@Yahoo or call 850-864-1857. Join a thriving, growing small animal practice in Vermont on the Quebec border. Full-time ideal, part-time is considered. The idea is to start with yes with the team, patients and clients, and outdoorsmen or outdoor woman's paradise while being able to practice high-quality medicine. Compensation is write your own structure within production capabilities. Literally, it is the owner wants to find the right person and is happy to negotiate, chat through, and find the right fit. If you want autonomy and a boss that enjoys teaching, reach out to Newport Veterinary Hospital. You can email newportveterinaryhospital@gmail.com. North Central Indiana, looking for an oasis in the chaos. Who isn't, right? Come join the amazing team at Fulton County Veterinary Clinic. They strive to foster a fun, fast-paced work environment while providing quality patient care. They utilize the support staff efficiently so that the doctor is available to practice medicine and do what you're trained to do in less time and paperwork, which is great. Lots of investment in new equipment and technology to support you, full-time or part-time available. Small animal and exotics are both seen there, so no ER, no on-call, no weekends, competitive salary with sign-on bonus offered, and far too many benefits to list. Go to Fulton County Veterinary Clinic. So type that in and you'll find the job posting there. Last but not least, join Watertown Animal Hospital. Personable small animal veterinarian wanted for well-established current 5-doctor mixed animal practice in northern New York, which is an outdoors person's paradise. Again, 2 of those. So if you like the outdoors, you can look at Vermont or New York. They have plenty of support staff with 6 CSRs, 6 licensed technicians, 4 animal caretakers, 2 technical assistants, a hospital assistant, a practice manager, and a bookkeeper. Focuses on mentorship and investment on the people and the technology. That's been a strategic initiative by the leadership team. No on-call, 24-hour ER less than an hour away. Salary based on experience, but no less than $95,000. Can be straight salary, pro-sal considered. Want to discuss that with the right person. Tons of benefits. Again, too much to list. Please reach out to watertownpetcare.com for that option as well. So again, if you find a role or a job or talk to anyone and it helps you in any way, I would love to hear that feedback. So please reach out. Let me know what you're able to do. And I will continue to post these. So if you are an owner, reach out to me, let me know. And we'll go from there. And until I hit a capacity of I can't keep recording these, I want to let people know who are high quality owners around the country looking for great help. So with that, we'll talk soon.
Thanks for listening to today's show. The comments made on today's show should not be taken as investment, tax, or legal advice. All comments are for educational purposes only. You should talk to your professional team before implementing anything. If you want or need financial advice, my day job and not podcasting is helping veterinarians grow their net worth. Our team is taking new clients, and we are ready to talk to you at any stage of life. Come as you are. I always say, bring the mess, right? Like if things are unorganized, that's okay. There's no prerequisites to become a client. Isaiah Douglas is a partner at Vincier Wealth Management. Isaiah is a registered investment advisor, registered with the SEC. The biggest compliment you can give me in the podcast is to share it with a friend. Reviews help the show get found, and Apple Podcast is the platform that is predominantly used for people listening to the show. If you have 3 minutes, love the show, head over to Apple Podcasts, give us an honest rating and review. It helps more people find the show. Also, the new YouTube channel is up, and I'd love to have you subscribe. Vainly, I want 100 subscribers at least. Lots more, obviously, right? But I get a vanity URL if we get to 100. That would be great. It makes it easier to find the YouTube channel as well. For all of today's links, information, head over to the veterinariansuccesspodcast.com. There you can subscribe to your favorite podcasting platform. It'll be a link to that YouTube channel I just talked about. You won't miss any other episodes, whether you list on Spotify, whether you have some other ancillary podcast platform. Please like, subscribe, all that stuff. It certainly does help. I appreciate it. Finally, if you want more information, insights, want your voice to be heard, want to share ideas for content, say, hey, Isaiah, I want you to have this guest. I want you to talk about this topic. Go over to the Facebook group. So you can search for the Veterinarian Success Podcast on Facebook or head over to veterinariansuccesspodcast.com, scroll to the bottom about your host, click on the Facebook icon, and that'll get you in the group. But thank you so much for listening. It means a lot to me to be able to see the podcast grow and continue to impact people. So with that, until next time, we'll chat soon.